What's up guys, welcome back, and as you can already tell, today's video is going to be showcasing the Nano Cortex into two different power amps. I've got the Boss WAZA tube amp expander back here. It is a solid state power amp, and I have my Fryette Powerstation. It is an all tube power amp. What you heard there in the video was the Fryette. Now, I've already done one of these videos already with the ToneMaster Pro showcasing how it sounds with its cabinet simulation disabled running into each of those two power amps, and although both of them sounded good, there were some key differences between the two. If you want to hear that, you can check out the link in the description to that video if you're a ToneMaster Pro user or just want to hear a different device through it. But if you are a Nano Cortex or a Quad Cortex owner, and you have any interest in downloading the capture that you heard in the intro, which is of my Nitro, this is what that's going to sound like through these two units. And I know that the Powerstation's been around forever, and a lot of guys love the thing. The WAZA tube amp expander, although I think it's a lot more flexible, it does have a different sound that might turn off some players. So that's why I want to let you guys hear what it sounds like through both of those units. Now the tube amp expander has impedance controls for the low end and the top end, which give it a lot of flexibility. However, the Powerstation, if you run a speaker cable out of the main speaker output back into itself, you can use these two little controls for the top end and the low end response, which basically is kind of like a bright and depth control. So each one of them is a three-way toggle. So what we're going to do here, though, we're going to focus on just the kind of like without using any of the reamping or re-attenuating, I guess it would be, or reload boxing, whatever it is. We're not going to be doing that today. We're just going to hear just the Powerstation, and I probably won't go in too much depth with the WAZA's impedance controls. I really only think they sound good in like maybe a couple of different places. This is mainly going to be just what this Nano Cortex sounds like through each of those, and you're probably going to have a really good understanding. Everything in the video, like all the different steps and different parts of what I do in the video, they're going to be on the timeline, so if you want to skip to whatever part you can. And everything that I'm using on this pedal board that is used in the video, I'll have links to all that crap in the video description as well. So, all right, let's get going here. This is my main gigging pedal board for this weekend. I have two shows, and one of them is a really big one. It's a wedding, and we're gonna have a lot of fun, and the bride and the groom are awesome, and they love heavy music. They've picked out some pretty rowdy songs, so we're gonna be we're really excited to play that, and I'm excited to hear what the Nano Cortex sounds like on the stage. Carrying quite a bit of extra gear with me just in case anything does happen to go wrong. I've been playing this Nano Cortex for hours and hours and hours since getting it, and been flawless. The Bluetooth connection has not dropped a single time, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it so far. But this is how I have it set up. So let me show you the signal path real quick. The guitar Sheptone pickups, the Brian Conahec signature pickups, they're the PAFs inside the Tokai LS150. It is going into the Shure Wireless, and today it's just going wired because, you know, whatever. And then that's going out into the Golden Boy, into the CAE-wah, into a Korg volume pedal, and then that is going into the Nano Cortex. It's going out of the Nano Cortex into the Spark for a solo boost, into the JHS 3 Series chorus for chorus, and then finally into the DelVerb for reverb and delay. Now I know what you're thinking. The Nano Cortex has all of these capabilities built into it. Why not just use that? Well, the main reason is I'm very particular about how the reverb and the chorus and the delay sounds. Now, I do think that the Dimension chorus that's in the Nano Cortex, it's very good. And I could set up some scenes in there to switch between whatever, but I just want to be able to leave the Nano Cortex alone, have one sound coming out of it, which is how I prefer to have it dialed in. Again, treating it like an amp in a box. And when I'm on stage, again, whether it's the Nitro or the Jubilee, I'm using one sound and I'm manipulating the sound with the rest of this stuff. So that's kind of how I'm treating this as well. If I need to make fine-tuning tweaks with the EQ, the volume, the gain, whatever, that's easily achievable with the knobs here, so I'm not having to rely on the app for anything on this. The only thing extra that this is doing is, as you can see on the phone screen here, is the noise gate. So I'm very particular about my reverb and delay, and I want to have very quick and easy access to control, to tweak the parameters for those if I want to. And yeah, just everything easily switchable. Now, again, like I said in my unboxing and initial impressions video for this thing, if they give us the ability to connect a 2-button foot switch to the MIDI jack on this, it will replace both of these two pedals right here. I'll still need the Spark for a volume boost, unless I do kind of like a A-B back and forth between essentially an identical patch, but one of them is just maybe 2.5 to 3 decibels louder, which is about where my volume boost sits on stage. If they give us that, then it will replace all 3 of these pedals, because although I am very particular about the sound of this, I can get pretty close with this, but again, I lose control over it. So it's a give and take situation there, where I would need to be relying on the phone app on stage with me, kind of sitting behind me on the stage, if I did want to make any kind of fine-tuning tweaks. But typically during a show, I don't have to do that. I know I'm kind of rambling on about like kind of the philosophy of the setup of this and how I operate on stage, but I figured it'd be good to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight to sort of like the practical use of how I put all this stuff to work on stage and how I'm incorporating the Nano Cortex into all of this, given that sort of gear philosophy. So if they give us that capability to add a 2-button switch, I will probably replace the chorus. I'm not in love with the JHS chorus, but it's serviceable. It sounds pretty good, and I like that it has a volume control on there, because the Real Dimension, which I've owned, the Chorus Ensemble, and the WAZA Chorus CE2, I believe, all 3 of those make the sound louder when you engage the chorus pedal, and I don't really know why, but all 3 of those pedals make the sound just go up, the volume go up, and with this I can physically control how much volume output comes from the chorus pedal. So that's kind of the main reason why I'm using this thing. Also, the Eventide Tricera chorus does the same thing, and the TC Corona, it also does the same thing. And I don't think any of those have volume controls on them, just to set the output of the volume of the chorus. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. You heard a little bit there in the intro of some of the different sounds you can get, and I feel like with the combination of the Golden Boy and where the gain is set on the Nano Cortex and a little bit of manipulation with the volume controls, either on the guitar or this volume pedal, you can cover a ton of territory. I mean, you heard, let's go ahead and, well, just go ahead and get started here. Just a nice, fat, clean sound. I can add a little bit of dirt on it based on the volume on the guitar. And what I can do is I can have it clean, like, and then hit it with this. And because of the flexibility of the Golden Boy here, I can change this boost to something a little bit fatter, but with a little bit more gain. So yeah, it's just a lot of flexibility there with these different drive modes, or excuse me, boost modes. And if you guys have seen any of my videos where I use the Golden Boy, you're obviously aware of all the different sounds and types of modes and things like that that it has. But basically, if you're not familiar with it, it has two different gains on there. You have a boost, which is controlled by a single knob, and then you have a drive, which uses the rest of the knobs, and you can cycle between 4 different voices or structures of gain on each of these, and you can also combine them for kind of like this cascading sound, and based on which boost and drive you have, that can change the overall structure of the gain sound that you get going into whatever you're sending it to. So just, yeah, a ton of flexibility. Oh, and by the way, it's got MIDI control on there, which I have my Morningstar controller set up for, to where if I have both of these on, you can't instantly turn both of them off if you hit both of them at once. If you do that, it changes the amount of gain. It kind of cycles through certain amounts of gain and then loops back around to the most gain, and kind of cycles back down, then comes back around again. So what you can do is you can program both of those to turn off instantly with one foot switch if you're using a MIDI controller. So pro tip there, if you do have one of these things and you need a way to instantly go from both of them cascading to none of them on. So yeah, that's the Golden Boy and the Nano Cortex. Now, the capture that I got from the Nitro, it had a lot more gain on there. It was about maybe halfway on the unit, but what I like doing is pulling it back just a little bit. Again, our band doesn't do anything super heavy, at least for the most part. And certainly if we need more gain, I have, again, 2 stages of gain from the Golden Boy that I can turn on there. So what we're going to hear now is just the the Nano Cortex with nothing there, and I'm going to go through some of the effects in the Nano. So if you don't want to use any of these and you just want to rely on kind of maybe just the unit itself, here's what that will sound like. And again, I know I'm kind of sticking, this is supposed to be a video of these 2 different power sections, but just kind of getting all of this out of the way, and then we'll focus on kind of like the core sound of these 2 units behind me. So here is Bone Dry. A little bit of reverb, and again, nothing fancy or crazy here. And I'll go ahead and turn some delay on. Turn that off, a little bit of chorus here. You see here the output, I've got it lowered down because, again, if you have it at 0 decibels here, the phone app controls are a little bit fiddly here, which is again why I really just, I don't want to have to be doing this on stage. Won't do anything like that mid-song the way I could, you know, with the physical controls on the pedal here. So this is I don't know how well that volume increase translated in the recording because everything's just direct, the microphones from the cabinet, but it was a noticeable jump through the monitors. But that's a good chorus, and if I could just do that and maybe toggle a volume boost or something like that on the Nano Cortex, and then use the DelVerb for my delay, at least the delay, maybe the reverb too, I would be completely satisfied. But as it sits, we're using all this. So, okay, back to just the Nano Cortex. All right, so now that we've heard the Powerstation for a little while, I'm going to leave everything as is, no effects or anything like that, and we're gonna hear the tube amp expander. All right, now I'm plugged into the WAZA tube amp expander. Now the resonance, the low end reactive load control, it is set to the low end setting, which is kind of like the most low end. And the presence, which controls again the top end of the sound, it's on the low mid setting. And in the ToneMaster Pro video, I commented that I really like the sound of low mid and high mid the best. They all kind of sound pretty good, but I think that those two in the low mid and high mid kind of really are the sweet spot for getting it sounding, in my ears, right. So let's go ahead and get started here. Again, no effects or anything. This is just the Nano Cortex. Now I'm going to set it to the high mids for the presence. I think honestly with that control, it depends on the amp that you've got captured or the model that you're using, which one of those sounds the best. If you've got an amp that has a little bit more upper end to it, then the low mid probably would work best. And if you've got an amp like the Nitro, which has a lot more that low end and lower mids, I kind of feel like the high mids setting complements it the best because it doesn't need any more low end or low mids. So either way, I think it sounds good in both positions. So let's hit the reverb on the Nano Cortex. And the hull on this is the setting, at least that I've got. I believe it might be the default, but I'm not 100% sure. Again, there's a companion app for this that lets you go through just a huge amount of presets and all kinds of different sounds. But the default plate is what I've just locked onto. But this is what whatever preset that I have for the hull sounds like. It's really big. right, let's try stacking the Golden Boy, and we'll mess around with the gain on the Nano Cortex and probably call it a day after that. So let's back to this is the gigging amount of gain that I use. Let's go back to the high mids. Let's set the presence to the low end setting. Back to the low mids, and let's set the resonance to the high mids. All right, let's increase the gain on the Nano Cortex back to the original capture gain, which is, I believe, again, halfway. Tell you what, let's go drop tuning here. Let's just crank the gain up a little bit more on the Nano Cortex here. Something weird's going on the low end there. It doesn't really sound right. Again, kind of like with the Kemper profiling. Once you start messing with these things, these controls after the fact of the capture, it doesn't behave like the real amp. And the gain, it's increasing the gain, but something's not right with it. Like, compare that to the factory capture amount and a boost. It's just so much cleaner and clearer, but it's still just as much, if not more, saturated. Now, lowering the gain on the Nano Cortex, I do feel like that works pretty well. And in some cases, you might get a better low gain sound of a capture than what the amp itself is capable of delivering, because again, a real amp gain knob might just start choking the sound down until it just kind of sounds really weak and thin, whereas on this, it might still maintain a lot of the fullness and the structure, but just be less aggressive to the point to where it sounds like you can get a good crunch out of a capture that was originally much higher gain. I think it needs a little bit more top end brought back in there if you're going to drop it down that low. But let's go ahead and put it back to where it was. is going to wrap up this video showing off the Nano Cortex and the whole rest of my pedal board that I use for my shows, and the two different power sections, the Fryette Powerstation 50 watt all tube power section, and the solid state Boss WAZA tube amp expander 100 watt power section going into the Splawn 412 cabinet. Again, as always, it has the Scumback H75, an MD421, and an SM57 on the speaker and the mic setup. So there you go. Very different sounds from these two power sections, but I believe both extremely usable. Now, like I mentioned in the ToneMaster Pro video, if you're not really using a modeler, or you're using a much simpler amp in a box, or maybe even like a rack preamp unit or something like that, the benefits of the tube amp expander can't be overstated on stage. It is like a Swiss Army knife on the stage. Not only do you have a lot of different outputs and flexibility, volume, physical volume controls over that stuff, but you also have built-in effects that not only go through your DI signal out to the board in the house or wherever you want to run it, but it also sends those effects into the speaker cabinet if you want those. And I believe you can turn that off in the app, the computer app, but not on the physical unit itself. It can also change amp channels, and again, those effects are switchable with MIDI, which again, I've got my my Morningstar controller programmed to control effects with MIDI on that thing. So I can do, I can have reverb out of it, I can have delay out of it, and I can have solo boost out of all through that. So I don't need a couple of these units, these effects pedals on the board if I'm going through that on stage. So again, even though you forego the sound and the feel and the warmth or all that stuff that you might feel like you get from a tube power section, you do gain a lot in terms of the flexibility with the routing, the volume controls, the levels, and those effects if you want kind of more of a all-in-one type package. But if you're relying on something like this or another modeler or whatever, or your own pedals for those effects, all of a sudden those extra doodads and features of the tube amp expander, all of a sudden they're not as important. But again, the resonance and the presence controls over the, I guess the impedance curves or whatever, those do make a very big impact on the sound. In my opinion, they change the sound in a more meaningful way, because they also change the way that the unit feels when you're playing. And they change in a more meaningful way than the slight changes that the top end and the low end control options on the Fryette Powerstation than what they do. But again, if you are using a Powerstation, then kind of running a speaker cable back into itself does give you a lot more extra control over the top end and the low end that you otherwise wouldn't have. So yeah, lots of rambling in this video about the gear and all that stuff, but I feel like there's a lot to kind of like get through to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of just what does this sound like through a couple of different power sections. But hopefully you've learned a lot about all the extra stuff that goes on, not only with my pedal board, my philosophy on how to use this stuff, and how it incorporates with the Nano Cortex for what I believe is going to be a very fun show and a very functional setup, but also how it sounds through two very different power amps. So yeah. If you're not subscribed, man, hit the subscribe button and help my channel grow, and stay tuned for more Nano Cortex content and maybe some more other kind of neural DSP content. I don't know, maybe we got something else on the way. We'll just have to stick around and see. And yeah, lots more captures to come. I'm going to get a DI capture of the Bridtone SLO, and I'm also going to get a DI capture of my Silver Jubilee back down here. And also, I've got a couple of other amps that I'm going to get my hands on this weekend, hopefully, to get some captures of. So stay tuned for all that. If you are a Nano Cortex user or a Quad Cortex user, I have the same screen name here as I have on the Cortex Cloud. So you can find me there, hit me up, be friends with me, and check out the captures that I've got. And if the thing is still bugged, I think the app is somehow bugged where you can see my profile, but you can't see any of my captures, but I can share them and then you can get to them somehow. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but I'm going to have a link in the video description straight to this capture that I was using today. So if you want to try it out, you can just go straight to that, add me, be friends with me, and grab my profile or whatever others you might see on there that you want to use. So, all right, I'm done talking. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.